like to invite on stage Mr. Hector Marwin, Chairman of Meghalaya Sustainable Development Council India, to set the scene for the next discussion. Once again, I invite Mr. Hector Marwin, Chairman of Meghalaya Sustainable Development Council India, to set the scene for the second panel discussion. Once again, I'd like to invite Mr. Hector Marwin, Chairman of Meghalaya Sustainable Development Council India, to set the scene. While we can't seem to find Mr. Hector, it's all right. He will join the panelists soon. I would like to introduce the panelists for the second discussion of the day, which is on adaptation and food security, with a special emphasis and focus on climate-smart agriculture. The panelists for the day, as I introduce them, I would like to welcome them on the stage. The first panelist would be the Honorable Member of Parliament of Bangladesh, Mr. Mir Mushtaq Ahmed. May we welcome him on stage. The Honorable Member of Parliament, Bangladesh, Mr. Mir Mushtaq Ahmed Robi. We also have researcher and writer, Future Food Institute of Italy, Ms. Stefania Petruzzelli. Then we have the Head of Nature and Biodiversity, World Economic Forum, Ms. Akanksha Khatri. Also joining us in the panel is the Chairman of Meghalaya Farmers Empowerment Commission India, Mr. K.N. Kumar. We also have the Vice Chairman of PwC India Foundation, Mr. Jaivir Singh. The moderator for this session, as I would like to welcome, would be Dr. Arkalgud Ramaprasad, Professor Emeritus, University of Illinois at Chicago, USA. I hand over this discussion to you, Professor.
Can we start? Hello, can you start? Is Mr. Hector Marwin available? No. Okay. Thank you all. Thanks for the opportunity. Mr. Hector Marwin is not here, so I will just give a little bit of an introduction to set the scene, and then we'll go on to the panelists to talk about it. Okay. The topic for today is adaptation in food security, climate-smart agriculture. I think the reason I got invited to this was because with a couple of my co-authors, we wrote a policy brief which has been published as part of T20 on climate-smart agriculture in India and G20. Our essential thesis in that was that, on the one hand, there's a tremendous amount of data on climate. On the other hand, there's a tremendous amount of data on agriculture, but the two don't speak to each other in terms of making the agriculture smart, in terms of adaptation to the climate, short-term, long-term, geographically, and so on and so forth. So that is the focus of the discussion of this panel today. What we will do is we will go around the panelists. Each one of them will have about 6 minutes to speak. And then we will have time for question and answers the last 15 minutes. And first, I would like to start with Mr. Mir Mustaq Ahmad Robi, Member of the Parliament from Bangladesh. So would you like to start? Yeah. Yes, this is the microphone.
Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. Before I say something, I want to give thanks to ORF and other organizations, those who are related with this, and especially thanks to the Meghalaya government. With the help of the Meghalaya government, this, the workshop or conference, whatever we call it, has started. And they have organized it. We are invited here. And I, on behalf of Bangladesh and Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh and the Speaker of our Parliament, I give thanks to all of them and the concerned people. See, the subject is the smart agriculture and the food. But these are all related with the nature, environment, pollution, everything, these are all related nowadays. Though time is not that much given by the moderator, when we sat with the moderator before the discussion, he has warned us very carefully that we have to finish it within the shortest possible time. I just wanted to convey one thing, that 2014, our Honorable Prime Minister declared that our country should be, I have forgotten to tell that word. Anyway, now our Honorable Prime Minister said that we have to go for the smart Bangladesh. So it is all related with the, if it is agriculture or the whatever, the country, the people and everything. And he has also very categorically, she has said several times that 1 inch land should not be vacant. We have to cultivate every places. Nothing will be kept vacant. As you know that when we got our independence, at that time our population was 7.5 crore people. Now we are about 17 crore people. Naturally, you can very well understand that our food and agriculture has developed a lot. And this is how we have been taught. And we are working on this very seriously so that nobody is foodless, nobody is homeless, everybody is getting all sort of facilities which is required for them. And that is why we are working and we are highly successful about this. We are always inspired by our Honorable Prime Minister. What I wanted to tell that our country wanted to be, the digital Bangladesh she declared in 2014. Country is fully digitalized and because of the digitalization, we have got a lot of, the development, a lot of things has taken place in our country. And we can do a lot of good things. And then after that, now she has declared for the smart Bangladesh. That I exactly wanted to say. But as you know, that the corona has spoiled our, the memory and a lot of things. Whenever we say that has to be told to right now, that we just forget. Anyway, so as I said, that everything is so related. The environment, the pollution, then the nature and the food, all are related. Everybody should understand that, and that is why we talk, we motivate the people, we go for the counseling, everything is required over the world. In the global world, you see, whatever we do, we cannot do for ourselves only. We have to think about the other part of the country. And as this is how we are groomed, and we are trying to, groom the people. And the whole world, everybody depends on others. So we have to work in such a way so that nobody is deprived and nobody deprived for anything. So we want such an environment through which we can have the everything. What is the time? Okay, thank you. So there are a lot of things to discuss, but what I wanted to say that globally, we have to work unitedly. And one thing I wanted to, before I conclude, one thing I want to say, the nature we have spoiled for a long time back. So now again we are trying to, how to improve the nature, how to develop the nature. So it's very difficult, but we have to work. As the Honorable, the Chief Minister has categorically said, they have a lot of coal and a lot of things. Even the Chief Secretary of this state has categorically said that they have a lot of coal, but instead of coal, the power, they are going for the energy. The satellite. What is that? Solar energy. They're trying to establish that, and that too, he has very categorically said the longevity of the solar, because there are some sort of things which we also did in our country. It does not last long, so we have to go for such a solar system so that it lasts long and people get the benefit out of it. Anyway, so these are the things, and the food security is all related: food, water, environment, nature. These are all related, and these are very important topic, important issue. So if we are careful and if we think about it very seriously, then we can do something better for the coming future and coming generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mir Mustaq Ahmad Rabi, for finishing on time. I really appreciate your giving a country-based, top-down perspective, the importance of a national commitment to that, and the Prime Minister's, the President's commitment to it, and also the whole movement towards digitalization, how it can affect not just the agriculture part of the country, but other sectors of the country too. Now for a sort of, not a contrarian, but a micro perspective, I request Mr. Kumar to take this thing. So Kumar, yes, you can please.
Very good afternoon to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. So I represent Meghalaya. In fact, whatever I say with respect to Meghalaya is equally applicable to the hilly states of the entire northeastern region. So we are a food deficit state. So whatever we produce is barely sufficient to meet the requirements of about 30% of our population. So the rest has to be brought either from outside or through public distribution system. That's how it's been going on for centuries. So it must be coming across as a paradox because we have rains. In fact, we don't have a shortage of monsoons. And we also have land. But how is it that we are a food deficit state? This is one question that we will have to ask ourselves. Because those who know our state know that we have 7 months rain. So when it is wet to the bone. And the next 5 months, when it is dry, it is bone dry. So you can just well imagine why this kind of a skew in monsoons impacts our food grain production scenario. And that is equally applicable to most of the northeastern states. So the upshot of this kind of a very wayward kind of monsoon, or wayward kind of rains, is that we do not have a second crop in the state of Meghalaya. So actually, if we could produce in the second crop, in fact, we would have become fully self-sufficient in food grains, but that doesn't happen. In fact, only 4.38% of our land is irrigated. And irrigation is very, very expensive in hilly states. So therefore, we are not in a position to provide from the government side. I'll contrast it with Tamil Nadu, one of the states in South India, which receives 3 times less rainfall than us. Their annual rainfall is about 988 millimeters. And our annual rainfall is 2,818 millimeters. So you can see that, they receive 1/3 less rain, but they produce 3 crops of paddy. Whereas we receive 3 times more rain, but we produce just 1 crop of paddy. That is the impact of climate on the people who live here. And this is equally applicable to other states also. Once again, I'm repeating at the cost of repetition, let me say this. So we were just estimating, if we have to provide assured irrigation to our state, to the last acre, how many years it will take for us to really assure that kind of a thing. And we realized that it will take 1,000 years for us at the rate at which we are going. We provide additional irrigation to about 258 acres every year. And at this rate, to irrigate about 2.58 lakhs of land, which is hectares of land, which remains fallow the whole of winter season. And that is one of the serious problems that we will have to address. And that is what is leading us to this fragility when it comes to food security in the entire Northeast and mostly our state. And what is the solution? The second crop, the residual moisture of the first season is not sufficient to support the second crop of paddy, because paddy is as you know, is a water guzzling kind of a crop. So therefore we cannot go for paddy. And wheat, there is no local consumption at all. So in the whole of Northeast, people don't really consume wheat. So what is the alternative? And after years of search, we finally discovered buckwheat. Buckwheat is one crop which is likely to really fulfill all the requirements of a fragile state, fragile from the point of food security state like Meghalaya, and not just Meghalaya, the whole of Northeast. And why do we think so? Because it doesn't require much water. The residual moisture is sufficient enough to give us the production. Secondly, it is a very short duration crop. You plant it immediately after the harvest of paddy, and within 3 months it gives you the yield. Thirdly, it's a nutritionally dense crop. It's not a cereal, it's actually a pseudo-cereal. So when it is nutritionally dense, it also has a very good balance of protein, unlike rice and wheat. And fourth thing, which is most important, is that it has 0 gluten. In fact, India is emerging as the diabetes capital of the world. So predominant cause behind all this is this high glycemic index crops like rice and wheat. So if only we could substitute one day, a day will come hopefully, rice and wheat with buckwheat, the world would be a healthier place. This is our belief. With that conviction, we have started. People did not know what buckwheat was here. So we brought the seed from elsewhere and we tried. From 0 acres, we have just last week I have assessed. So we have touched 200 acres in just about 2 years' time. And here we also have a little global situation here. Russia is the largest exporter of buckwheat, and Japan is the largest importer of buckwheat. And some of you from Southeast Asia would know about soba noodles, and it's a very, very popular popular noodles of Japan. Now, because of this geopolitical situation, now Russia is not able to supply anymore to Japan. And Japan is desperate to source buckwheat from anywhere else in the world. And they have identified Meghalaya as one of the states where we have ideal conditions for producing buckwheat. And India, as it is importing buckwheat. So it can also be an import substitution product. This is one example I want to see. See, it's not that, sorry, I think just 5 seconds, I'll close it. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not that we were smart when it comes to climate or anything like that. We did not even understand all those things when we were actually going ahead. All that we did was we didn't want to keep the land fallow for almost 7 months, 6 to 7 months a year. And that problem has led us to a solution which is turning out to be climate smart. And it's not that we were intelligent enough to understand this, but after we have started it, we have understood that this is one of the best crops that the whole country, whole world should adopt for climate smart agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you, Kumar. I think it was a nice segue in terms of Mir Ahmad Robi talking about the global problem, and Kumar highlighted how even for global problem, the solutions have to be localized and micro-localized and adapt to the conditions and adapt to the situation. Next, we are going to go to Akanksha Khatri. Akanksha works for the World Economic Forum. She is going to give
industry, buildings, and land use, but also the political, economic, environmental, human, social spheres are possible with what Future Food Institute calls integral ecology, an harmonious ecosystem between man and nature, capable of regenerating itself and sustain itself over time. To be realized, 6 areas need to be addressed: the political area, the environmental area, the human area, the social area, the cultural area, and the economic area. But I want to focus on another paragraph of the IPCC, the one on health and nutrition. The IPCC points out that one of the possible strategies to contrast the global emergency is healthy, balanced, and sustainable diets, and, I quote, contribute to nutrition, health, biodiversity, and other environmental benefits. I realized that it is possible when I first went to the place where Future Food Institute had applied its integral ecologic model, Pollica, a village in the south of Italy where the Mediterranean diet was born. Mediterranean diet, which is a concrete example in itself of integral ecology. I understood that it is possible to safeguard the environment, benefit new generation, and ensure social justice with a sustainable and integral development model based on food understood as a lifestyle that protects biodiversity, soil, landscape, sea, and individual and community well-being. So, by placing a healthy and sustainable lifestyle based on food at the center, it is possible to fully regenerate the area I have mentioned. And I think that this is possible also with the project of Meghalaya. Thanks.
Thank you, Stefania, for finishing absolutely on time. I think in many ways, Akanksha talked about the interdependence of sectors. I think Stefania broadened the range of sectors where the interdependence exists. And also, there are a couple of other points that I noted. There may be other things too. One is, she highlights the problems of regeneration. And these sectors have to act with each other to regenerate. Regenerate means that it is it's a positive reinforcing feedback loop that continues. But another important point that I think we all need to address is the inequalities or the inequities. The contributors to this are not the ones that are correcting the problem. The ones that are correcting the problem are not the contributors to the problem. And what happens when that balance is restored, will it be sustainable? I think that dynamic equilibrium is going to be a challenge that may need to be addressed. So I'll go to the last panelist, that is Jaivir Singh, and Jaivir, it's yours for the next.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to try to catch up as best as I can, being the last on the panel, but also because I think for most of you who've been through your conference manifest, we have a small report in there which we've partnered with ORF just a few months ago, which is concentrating on adaptation. And that's the lens that perhaps I just want to very briefly touch on a few points that are not theoretical examples, but ones that we in the private sector have in some ways neglected as we've looked at development and as we've looked at the social sector historically. So what we've tried to do over the last half decade or so, and this is across a range of landscapes, the Northeast included, is to be able to actually go to the grassroots and understand the interdependencies between what can be brought to the table as we think about localized knowledge which is existing, how is that being replaced by the new markets model, and is there a space for both of those to be brought together for us to find solutions as we think about more sustainable futures? Let me bring those alive with a few examples. We work in places like Bundelkhand in Uttar Pradesh, where when we first went in, we found a 1,000-year-old wheat grain, 40% less water, 60% better on nutrition content, right? But it's about to be wiped out because we're looking for higher yield. We found the same thing as we've done projects in Arunachal Pradesh, where we've now been able to create sort of truly organic rajma, which we're now trying to do market connections, because at the moment there are too many middlemen, and the benefit that would typically be seen as you think about organic being bought at the urban level does not get seen by the farmers themselves. So I think it's a point that the Honorable Chief Minister was making earlier as well. The lens that we're trying to use is to say that if we don't better and sustain livelihoods and have communities see benefit in the transition that all of us might be suggesting, this is not going to work for the future, right? So with community at the center and with some of that localized knowledge at the center, we're trying to do some programming which helps us take the benefits of a consultancy company, which I am an extension of, work along with government, local communities, and hopefully bring best practice. ORF, thank you for introducing me to a colleague who some of my colleagues in PwC have already been working with at the World Economic Forum to create adaptation strategies where the private sector can be involved. So our concentration will remain in some senses as we think about sustainable adaptation, because I do think that we're a bit way off as we think about the targets for 2030. And so a lot of our focus is going to be around that, and I just want to put it on this public platform as well, that as Meghalaya as a state, and thank you for hosting us, but as Meghalaya as a state looks at its solar program, as well as this Climate Change Institute, which is looking to create over the next year or so, we'd be more than happy to be a part of assisting that process and being a part of that journey along with you. So thank you, and thank you for having me here.
Okay, I love it when panelists finish ahead of time so that I don't have to raise my hand and say, running out of time. But thank you. I think we've got some very interesting points. I think just to paraphrase, or the points that I want to paraphrase from Jaivir, is talking about localized knowledge and also traditional knowledge. And again, organic, that the urban thinks may not be organic locally. And also, sometimes we get caught in the whole thing of efficiency and growth and quantity. The wheat that was 1,000 years old, or however many.
Very good afternoon. I'm Professor Joshi. I teach in a university here. I'm working on biofertilizer per se. My question is to Dr. Akansha. When you talked about bio-based solutions to, bring back agriculture where the land was probably left fallow, there were too much of chemicals being used. What kind of bio-based solutions are they using? Because if we talk about our perspective of state of Meghalaya, there are also places if you visit, you look at sacred groves, for example, just adjacent to the sacred grove, there is absolutely nothing. It's barren. If we try to involve community, we'll also have to develop certain bio-based solutions so that the trees grow.
Opportunity. We will be releasing a report on the chemical sector's transition pathway for nature positive by September. And one of the pieces that we are looking at is indeed moving away from non-renewable to bio-based feedstocks. So your question, I could take it in two ways. In general, yes, the native species is better for soil health, but the challenge that you are raising is that the soil has completely been eroded. So there has to be some sort of a hybrid solution, which we are seeing everywhere in the world, is that we need to look at which is the most climate adaptable, climate smart option. Sometimes that option could be native. I think that the example Jaivir was saying, but in sometimes you will have to work with science and corporates to actually come up with a solution which is very localized. And we've been speaking with some of the top companies as well in this space. I mean, just because the variety worked 100 years ago, even if it is native, the situation is completely changed now. We're seeing this in Lebanon, we're seeing it in Switzerland. Even if you talk about farming on hills and mountains, the weather patterns are completely different. So just one answer is yes, we should go as much as possible to reduced chemicals and more bio-based, but whether that bio-based has to be native or not will depend on soil health.
Thank you, Akanksha. I think there was another question. Before we take that one, I just want to make an editorial comment. I think Akanksha highlighted something to me is important. Traditional knowledge is important. Traditional knowledge is good. But traditional knowledge may not also be valid today. It may have to be re-engineered and modified. I think we need to take it with a sort of note of caution that just traditional knowledge, because it's traditional, may not be simply the sort of the magic solution to the problem. Okay, there was another question from a
I'm Tanvir Shakil Joy, Member of Parliament from Bangladesh. I don't have a question. I just want to supplement with my senior Member of Parliament, the scenario in Bangladesh. We had our budget this year, and government allocated $3.5 billion to the agriculture sector, and most of them is on climate smart agriculture. And we know that agriculture actually, is part of like global emission also. 20% comes from agriculture. And in Bangladesh, the crop production tripled, and in our total carbon footprint, around 40% is from agriculture. So we are in a very critical situation. So Bangladesh government has actually have a one of the world-renowned program, which we call Mujib Climate Prosperity Plan, which actually encompasses our NDCs, NAP, and everything included. And there we are having emphasis on climate smart agriculture like solar powered irrigation pump, zero tillage, better salinity resistant crops. And the northern part we are having extreme heat problems, so we are promoting heat resistant crops. So my point is that like these things we are doing, like India, Bangladesh, and the global south is doing, but we need very proactive approach from the global north, especially funding and also the technological transfer, because it's very important that for this climate smart agriculture, only the nature-based solutions, and as you rightly pointed out, our traditional knowledge will not suffice. So we need to have a better combination for that, and Bangladesh in climate smart agriculture is leading the way, but I think we need to have a better regional cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. I think also implicit, I'll come to in a second, and there's an implicit in this is that many of these solutions may have side effects. In other words, there was an article about Australia, for example. They started growing forests for the greenhouse emissions. The trees grew well, but the sheep grew and the methane emission grew, sort of a thing. So one has to be very concerned about everything is not positive. We need to balance. I think somebody else more pointed the importance of balancing things out. There are positives and negatives which we have to manage very acutely and very closely in order for it to be effective. Yes, sir, your turn.
Thank you so much. I'm Piyush Dogra. I'm a senior environment specialist with the World Bank office in New Delhi. I think I like the idea of Jay. Important point would be that we should have that PPP, the private sector participation, and especially in the area when we are talking about agriculture, agro-biodiversity. So it's not agriculture alone. When we are looking at climate smart agriculture, it needs to be aligned with the agro-biodiversity, agroforestry as such. And I would like to mention that in the context of Meghalaya, if we also look at Meghalaya or Northeast as such, if we look at this high biodiversity hotspot and look for low volume and high value products, probably that will change the whole scenario of economic development in the state, which is also becoming one of the discussion point. And Forum would like to include that also as one of the point of discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Does anybody want to respond to that? No? You want to respond? Okay, Akanksha, you're.
No, I just wanted to second. It's a statistic I just love saying, is that I think more than 70% of human calories today come from 3 crops: wheats, rice, and corn. So I think the agro-biodiversity, and that's where states like Meghalaya could really show the way, like what is more endemic. So whether it's buckwheat or it is something else would be a solution.
Thanks, Akanksha. I think somebody else has the microphone. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Vijit Sharma from the School of Livelihood. One very specific sector I would like to bring to notice and ask a question. That's localization of agriculture consumption.
Would you repeat the last part?
Localization of the agricultural consumption. Presently, we have moved largely, and in fact, Mr. Kumar also mentioned that, we have moved largely towards monocropping. And this monocropping is increasing the transportation costs. And during COVID, we have realized how localized production becomes more important. In India, in other countries, including in Europe, how supply of agricultural produce, be it vegetables or food grains, became a challenge. So this can majorly reduce carbon credits. So I would like to ask how World Economic Forum has worked around that.
Okay, the question goes back to I think the implicit point. Yeah, go ahead. You got it. You want to paraphrase it? Okay.
Just very quickly. So I think there are two pieces here. You are absolutely right on the trade and commodity side of things. And many of you would be aware right now, even in WTO, following the EU deforestation law, a lot of developing countries are pushing back because the EU deforestation law means that any kind of imported deforestation needs to be paid for. So I cannot get cheap avocados from Latin America and enjoy them in Europe if I'm not paying for the externality. So I'm fully with you on that. The way we at the forum are looking at it, we will start some work actually on valuing natural capital as well as ecosystem services and what is the fair share of responsibility between global north and global south, because most of the consumption today happens in global north.
Thanks, Akanksha. Mir Ahmed Robi wants to make one last point. I will give him an opportunity to do that, and then I have another 4 minutes or 3 minutes after that. So I'll just give around the panels and see if they want to make a last statement. All right? And yes, sir, yours. Quick.
Oh, thank you very much. Now, I just wanted to share with everybody that in our country, we are giving a lot of, the support to the cultivators for developing the agriculture and to grow the agriculture in a broader way. We're putting them seed without the money, then feed, lot of things we are providing them every year. Thousands of crore, the Bangladeshi taka, we are giving them. This sort of support we are giving them to encourage the cultivators to grow the, agriculture. This is one way. Another thing is we have research team. The research team are trying to cultivate, suppose the tomato. Suppose it does not take place in summer, but the research people are finding out how we can make the tomato or get the tomato in summer. So this is how our agriculture ministry is also supporting the agriculturist to develop all these things. And this is how we have developed a lot. And over the world, probably we are in third position as far as agriculture is concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think we have another just 3 more minutes according to this. There's one quick question. Yes, sir. Quick one and a quick answer to that.
Thank you. One reflection that it's a very dynamic situation. So, Javier, question to you, particularly your commercial side of things in PwC, the whole practice of strategic environmental impact assessment, where you can look a couple of centuries ahead, the decision which we are taking now, everyone is suggesting certain decisions, what impact that will have. And I think two parameters I would suggest: that it should not create more disasters, or it should prevent current disasters as well. Like whatever buckwheat or anything else you're planting, is it going to help reduce flash floods in Meghalaya or anything else? So I think certain things need to be put in a longer term perspective.
Javier, you want to respond to that and make your final comment also, so that we'll go around?
Absolutely. Okay. Just a response to the question, and I think that the lens that you're using is a DRR lens. And the word that I'll start with is the word that you started with, which is dynamic. I think if you look at climate modeling and with the amount of data that we had 20 years ago, you compare it to 10 years ago and you look at it now, things have changed drastically. So I don't think that if you today start doing something which is modeling for 100 years from now, you are going to get it right. I think this is a consistent and constant process because the world is dynamic in that sense and things will change. So I think there's not a one size that I can say it today and it will be relevant 100 years from now. So I think we just need to consistently be doing it. My quick comment just is if you think about this panel, if I think about the people in this room, the collaborative innovations that are available, we've got enough research and enough solutions available to us. It's the pilot to scale example that I want to stress on, and I'm pointing the finger back at us in the private sector because we have the skills and the resources to be able to make that happen. So how can we create more of those platforms which do the thinking, but also collaborate for action? Thank you.
Thank you, Javier. Stefania, final comment?
I think that we have everything in our hands. I mean, sometimes I think that tradition is innovation, and we can use tradition as innovation.
Thank you.
That's it.
You have a final comment? Okay. Akanksha, final comment?
I think just an offer of help and desire to collaborate with Meghalaya as the world needs more examples of a net zero nature positive economy. I think Meghalaya can really show the way. So let us know how the World Economic Forum and this panel can work with all of you.
Thank you, Akanksha. Kumar, final comment?
I'm responding to the gentleman from World Bank, and he said about low volume and high value crops. In fact, Meghalaya was possibly the first northeastern state to have picked this theme as central to its agriculture policy 20 years ago. In fact, we started off with strawberry, and today we are the third largest producer of strawberry. Secondly, we also have gone into shiitake. No other state in the country has even stepped into that. So these models have started giving us the results. In fact, for your kind information, Meghalaya's per capita farmers' income is the highest in the country. We have beaten Punjab twice over.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, the panelists, for sticking to time and making valuable contributions. I found it engaging and interesting and insightful. I hope all of you found it engaging, insightful, and interesting. We look forward to continued conversations. I think all of our email addresses are available somewhere, easily available. So look forward to continued conversations with all of you. Thank you all for participating.